Hey, you want to go camping?
Ding 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 ding. Is that banjo music I hear?
Oh, no.
That's never a good sign. That has become kind of iconic.
It certainly has.
And so this week that's one of the bonus films, but we watched Deliverance.
Last week, we watched some big-scale, high-stakes disaster films. This week, we're watching Stupid People versus Nature.
More intimate disaster films, where people
Smaller scale.
put themselves in situations that turn out badly. And Deliverance isn't strictly a horror movie, but it's horrifying, and it's a man versus nature kind of situation. And if you haven't seen it, you really should. It's really good, holds up well.
You tell me those two guys out in the woods are not monsters.
They're a force of nature, sort of.
It's a horror movie.
It's kind of a horror movie, but not
People
officially,
were afraid to go into the woods for decades
not
after that
officially
movie.
in the genre. Yeah.
All right, well, Stupid People versus Nature, Nature Wins Week. We will start with Open Water from 2003.
Sharks.
Which is the only one this week that I had seen before.
Mm-hmm. Same here.
Then we'll hang out in Frozen 2010. We got to sing the song?
No,
Let It Go?
It's not that Frozen.
Oh.
It's not the happy Disney cartoon Frozen. It's
Oh.
a bad Frozen.
Well, this one came first, believe it or not. So if you talk about, if you hear your little kids talk about Frozen, they probably mean people stuck on a ski lift and being eaten by wolves.
Oh, sure. Yeah, sure. That's what they mean. Yeah.
All right, then we'll stop for a short film and return with 2014's Backcountry. Never go camping again after this one. And then 2022, Fall, the newest film of the week. As a bonus, over at horrorbulletin.com, we also look at Devil's Pass. Some guys go to the Dyatlov Pass to reconstruct what really happened there.
And this is the only one of the 6 movies that's paranormal. All the others are, they're not real, but they're
Could be real.
They could be real. There's no supernatural elements in any of the others except this one.
Yeah, I saw the description for this and thought it was going to be, they all go out there and they freeze to death too. But
no,
there's
supernatural,
monsters and stuff.
sci-fi, horror. Yeah.
And then 1972's Deliverance, the ultimate in outdoor disasters.
Pretty much. Worst canoe trip ever.
Yeah. If you want to go back in time, way back 4 years ago, episode 10, we looked at Drag Me to Hell.
Harsh.
And Happy Death Day.
Mm-hmm. That Drag Me to Hell, I still think, it's infinite punishment for a finite crime.
She was just doing her job.
Well, she was, and that's not usually a reasonable
She wasn't even
defense,
mean about it.
Yeah, she wasn't. But, the gypsy cursed her, rather than, she's just a tool for many people far above her pay grade, who are really responsible for the mess that they caused her. But, she's the scapegoat, and so, yeah. She's the one that caught the brunt of the gypsy's wrath.
If you get served for a legal notice and you put a curse on the mailman, it's the same deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Not fair.
Yeah.
And then we also watched Happy Death Day from 2017.
And that was a good one.
We were still only watching 2 movies a week back then.
Wow.
Had it so easy.
How we have evolved.
Yeah, and of course, if you'd still like to pick up one of our Horror Guys guides for free, we've got the Horror Guys Guide to the Halloween films. It's got all 13 of the Michael Myers movies with a synopses and spoilers and a nice little timeline and everything you want to know about Halloween.
And it explains that timeline of which ones go with which.
The reboots and the alternate timelines and the different versions and the ones that don't really count and the ones that do really count and the ones that shouldn't even be there.
Check it out. It gives you a taste of what the books are like, and it's for free for code Halloween.
Actually, it's not even that anymore. I just made it free.
Oh, easier still. Okay.
I thought maybe the promo code was confusing people or made it look funky or something. No, it's there just for free. Go and download it.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that was an option you could do. Awesome.
All right, and what else? Oh, hey, there's a new book coming out for pre-order next week.
Really? What's it about?
This is Sunday afternoon, probably Tuesday or Wednesday. The Horror Guy's Guide to the Films of Peter Cushing will go on pre-order sometime this week.
All right.
Should be out in a couple of weeks for real, but you'll be able to pre-order it right away. Peter Cushing. He made a whole mess of them.
Yeah, Frankenstein's and
People remember
creatures
him
and
for
vampires and-
for the Hammer films, which we've got a book, The Horror Guy's Guide to the Hammer films, also.
And people
but he did a
remember him for
lot
Star Wars,
more
of
than
course,
that too.
he
Oh, of
was
course, Star Wars.
Grand
Yeah.
Moff Tarkin. Yeah,
Evacuate in our moment of triumph.
never.
You overestimate their chances.
Yeah, famous last words.
Okay, and there's only a couple of days left in February. If you go over to lulu.com and type in Brian Shell or Horror Guys, all our books will come up, and you can use a 15% off by using the promo code February15. FEBRUARY 15. And you get 15% off. Cool beans.
Because we like you.
Well, because Lulu likes you.
No, we did that. We made that. We made that.
All right, which one are we going to do first?
Open water. It's Shark Day. Shark Night.
Not Shark Week.
No.
Only one this time.
No.
Written and directed by Chris Kentis. Stars Blanchard Ryan, Daniel Travis, and Saul Stein. Hour and 19 minutes. Trailer in the show notes if you have not seen it. Spoiler free. This takes a little while to get to the good stuff. Yeah, a lot of drama.
A lot of lead up to it.
Here's a little bit of a thin story stretched out into movie length. But the situation they end up is horrifying, so it's worth the watch in the end.
And this is loosely based on true events. This has happened to people for real.
Supposedly.
Yeah,
well, there's
But it
real people
could.
with a real name.
Well, and it could happen. That's one of those, it's horrifying because this could be real.
Yeah.
Movies.
All right, well, what happens?
Well, Daniel and Susan get ready for their impending trip. Supposed to be a vacation, but she keeps getting calls from work. Well, but soon they're on the tropical beach that looks warm and civilized, and credits roll.
That's my idea of a vacation.
Yeah. Well, Susan has signed them both up for a diving trip tomorrow, and they do some usual touristy things. The next morning, they show up at the dock nice and early as a crowd of people prepare diving tanks and equipment. There's Davis, Linda, and Junior who run the boat, and Davis talks about where they're going. They see some sharks, but...
Might see some sharks.
they
He
might.
says you might see them.
Yeah, but don't worry about it. They aren't very aggressive. David does a sloppy head count of the passengers. It's 20 people. Well, they eventually get to where they're going, and everybody suits up. David gives some last-minute instructions, and everything seems all clear and good. Except one guy forgot his mask, so there's some distraction and confusion. They're supposed to be diving for 35 minutes. And they do some normal scuba diving stuff. People get off the boat, get back on again. The guy without the mask borrows someone else's mask. Then he gets in the water. Shanghai's a buddy because he's kind of a jerk.
They won't let him go in by himself, so he takes one of the people that already just got out.
Yeah, but in the meantime, these boat people are trying to do a tick sheet of, who's in, who's out, how many people are in the water. So it gets a little jumbled up. And Linda, helps him into the water, which adds 2 more people to the count of who are in the water.
And this is where it really goes wrong, because they got back in and she didn't count them.
Yeah. Well, Susan and Daniel dive in the pretty fish in the pretty water, and they have a great time.
Yay!
Yeah. Well, people start getting out of the water, and Davis counts the people who get out, and his number matches what he had written down because things got screwed up in the count. So they pull up the ladder, start the engine, and zoom off. And eventually, Susan and Daniel surface, and the boat is gone. Well, they see 2 boats in opposite directions. They wave, but they're too far away to be seen.
It's not clear at this point whether either of those boats was really theirs.
Yeah, they're both heading away. Well, if they choose the wrong boat, they'd swim the wrong direction, so they decide to stay put, keep waving, and the boats just leave. Yeah. Then they notice that they're drifting in the current. One of the boats does start approaching them, but it's a different boat. But it's a tour boat, goes right past them without seeing them. Back at the dock, the boat they were on unloads the passengers, and their street clothes and stuff are all stashed under the bench.
Nobody notices.
So nobody notices, yeah. Susan sees a shark, but Daniel points out they aren't dangerous. They've been out for 2 hours now. She's getting cold, and there's definitely a shark out there. But they said they don't get that close. And they also said the boat would be here. Yeah. Well, we get a water montage as time passes. The two ask each other trivia questions to pass the time. Susan gets stung by a jellyfish. So does
Ooh, a
Daniel.
jellyfish sounds cool. That was a good
Jellyfish.
slip there.
Yeah, jellyfish. I must be hungry. Yeah. And Daniel mentions that getting lost in the middle of the ocean is a lot more common than you'd think, which really lifts her spirits. Yeah.
This happens all the time.
Another boat drives by but doesn't see them, and they wonder what happened with the head count. Why didn't anyone find their stuff on board? Well, she lays back and goes to sleep. Several hours later, she wakes up when a shark bumps her, and Daniel was nowhere to be found.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, well, they kind of drifted apart when they both fell asleep. But she spots him, swims toward him, and we also see that she's bleeding. He admits that, he went to sleep as well. They just drifted apart. And Daniel looks at her leg, and she's got little teeth marks. Not good. Bigger sharks are starting to be drawn by the blood. They start to surface around them, and they both start to panic. The two take time out to play the blame game and whine to each other. I wanted to go skiing, Susan complains, and so forth. And, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. Yeah.
As we'll see in our next movie, skiing would not have been better.
Yeah. Well, they see ships and even a buoy, but the current keeps taking them the wrong way, and nobody sees them. A shark bumps Daniel, and he drops his knife. He gets bit pretty bad, and there's lots of blood in the water. She ties his leg off with a belt, and he starts to go off into shock. And then the sun goes down, and there's a thunderstorm, which makes things even worse. And the sharks go at it, and Daniel panics. When the sun comes up, Davis boards his boat and notices the leftover bag from the day before. He finds their ID cards inside. He remembers them, runs to get help. They check out their room, and see that they aren't there. So finally they figure out that they're missing and organize a search party. Yay, rescue, help's on the way. Too late. Yeah. Susan wakes up. Daniel is still with her, but he's not moving. He's dead. So she finally lets him go, and she watches as the sharks tear him apart. And there's a whole bunch of sharks down there now. So she gives up and drowns herself, not to have to be eaten alive instead.
And we don't know this, but the rescue party probably would have been there in another 10 minutes.
Well, we don't know that. Big ocean, and they were drifting.
Well, this was all Linda's Linda's fault for not writing down the two late divers who went after everyone else. And Davis didn't do an actual head count after everyone boarded the boat. He could have seen there was only 18 people.
Mm-hmm.
And Susan and Daniel could have paid more attention to the time. They're both wearing dive watches, so why wouldn't they be aware of the time? If you got the big old deadline like that, plus you've only got a certain amount of oxygen in your tanks, you'd be watching the clock pretty closely, I'd think.
Yeah. And, like they said, we want you down there for 35 minutes, come back. And people did, and there was time to get on board, and they farted around and stuff. And they had way more time than 35 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really farted around down underwater and popped up, and the boat was gone.
Entitled people paying the price.
A combination of factors, yeah.
It was a comedy of errors, but once they get left behind, after that point, it all seems pretty believable.
Mm-hmm.
It goes badly.
Yeah, very badly.
What's next?
Frozen. Let it go.
Oh, I really want to sing the song.
Yeah, from 2010. Directed by Adam Green and also written by him. Stars Shawn Ashmore, Emma Bell, and Kevin Zegers. Runtime is 1 hour and 33 minutes, and there's a trailer in the show notes.
And if you're looking up the trailer and you watch the one with the snowman, you got the wrong one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This isn't the happy cartoon musical. And it's a little bit of a contrived chain of events to get the trio to where they end up.
I think all of these are.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. But the acting is good, the effects are realistic, and it is a horrifying situation to be in, despite it not strictly being in the horror genre. But it is. I mean, they're trapped.
Well, I think this one's probably a lot more horror than Deliverance would have been.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
The people are eaten by wolves.
Yeah. Well, spoiler. This is supposed to be the spoiler-free portion.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
I think this one's solidly horror.
Yeah.
Well, we begin by looking at the innards of ski lift machinery as the credits roll. Parker, Joe, and Dan are at the bottom of the ski slopes. Well, at least we're getting started right away in this one. Dan gives Parker $50 to bribe a guy to let them onto the ski lift. It costs double that, but they finally get on the ski lift. And we were wondering about this at the time. I've never been skiing. I don't know how it works. But wouldn't you just pay an admission fee to the place and go up the ski lift as many times as necessary?
I thought that's how it worked. You buy a pass. They give you like a little lanyard kind of thing or something that is your ski lift pass.
Yeah, at this point, it looks like each trip up the mountain costs $100. That seems like a lot.
Well, they bribe him, and they're like excited because that's a good deal.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm sure it's not. That part's not made up, but I don't. Yeah, wow, that's weird. Well, partway up the mountain, the chairlift stops. Parker gets nervous, especially when Dan starts bouncing up and down. It's always one of those jackasses that jump up and down in the elevator, too. You notice?
Yeah.
After a minute or two, it starts up again, and they get to the snowboarding zone.
And you know that this is not the bad part where it stops there, because there's people on all the cars.
Yeah, it's not it.
Yeah.
It's just showing us that maybe it's a little flaky sometimes. Well, the two guys insist that Parker wear a helmet. Joe meets Shannon and Ryan and almost gets into a fight. Joe wants to do some real skiing rather than just watch Parker fall down all day, but Dan insists that Parker come along just to watch. It's getting late, and the ski lift operator won't let them on because bad weather is coming and they're clearing the mountain. But they beg for one more run. He relents and lets them on. There's something in there about them closing early tonight because of the weather.
Yeah, nobody else is getting on the ski lift, and after them, he puts a red flag on one of the empty cars, which I think is supposed to be the symbol for, that we're done and nobody's on after that point, except, there is still 3 people on it.
Well, the ski attendant gets called to the manager's office for something, and his fill-in guy sees the red flag, which means the ski lift is empty. Meanwhile, the ski lift stops with Parker, Dan, and Joe stuck on it. They talk about the worst way to die to pass the time.
Cheerful talk.
Well, it's a game.
Yeah.
Then the lights all get turned off. The resort is now closed. They had been thinking that the lift was just temporarily broken, but now they know they're stranded. Dan makes the excuse that maybe the power has gone out. The 3 bicker and argue for a bit as panic sets in. This is Sunday, and the resort isn't open again until Friday.
It's just a weekend resort.
It's not a matter of waiting until tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, it's not long before the snowstorm hits. A snowplow drives right under them, but the driver can't hear them yelling because of the wind. He eventually turns around and drives back down the mountain. Parker accidentally drops her glove, and now she risks frostbite. Dan decides to jump down, but it's like 50 feet or so above the ground. He goes for it and breaks both legs.
Yeah, that's a...
Ow.
Oh, that's an owie. Oh, they did that well. Oh, you just feel that when he lands.
They all yell up and down to each other until they start hearing the wolves howl. Then they watch as a wolf closes in on Dan, who can't even stand up, much less run. Joe, then he thinks he wants to try to climb on the cable to the next chair, which is next to a tower that has a ladder down. Well, the cable cuts through his gloves, so he returns to the chairlift just in time to watch Dan be eaten by a whole pack of wolves.
So now what are you going to do?
This is the part I find a little skeptical.
Yeah?
This is a busy snow resort that had hundreds of people in there just a few hours earlier.
And there's an active pack of wolves.
Even if there were a couple of wolves in that forest, I don't think they would be brave enough to come out there. Even at night, I think the wolves are more smarter and more timid than that.
It seems like they would be staying clear of this very active human area.
They would be smart enough to know that humans are not prey at that point.
Unless they're really, really hungry.
Yeah,
but why would
there's no reason to think that's the case.
Yeah, why would that be the case? But anyway,
well,
it happens.
It happens, yeah. Parker and Joe are both getting cold, but they don't try to jump down. I wouldn't either at that point.
No.
They start arguing about who's to blame for Dan's death. Parker freaks out about her little dog is going to die at home and starve to death if she dies on this chairlift. Okay. Morning arrives. Parker wakes up and can't get her hand off the safety bar. It's frozen to it.
Yeah.
She forces it, which removes a bunch of skin. Her face is frostbitten as well, and so is Joe's. Still, it's a bright sunny day, so maybe someone will come into work and find them. Parker pees herself. She can't hold it anymore. And I don't know why they put this peeing scene in there, because it doesn't go anywhere. Seems to me as cold as it was,
Freeze
she'd
right
have
to the-
frozen to the seat or something.
It wouldn't help her keep warm.
Or gotten frostbite somewhere else. But
Yeah.
I think they should have either left that off or...
It didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, it
She
should have
wasn't
gone
frozen
somewhere.
to the seat or anything. Yeah.
There would be consequences.
No, there wasn't.
Joe decides to try climbing the wire to the next car a second time. The wolves return below Joe, waiting for him to fall. In the daylight this time.
Mm-hmm.
He makes it to the next car, but his gloves are torn up and his hands are bloody. Parker throws down the ski poles so Joe can defend himself when he gets to the ground, but now he has to climb into the pole from the chairlift. "You can do it!" Parker yells. And he does it. He makes it to the ladder and climbs down.
But there's wolves.
The wolves immediately attack, and he runs them off with the ski poles. He takes off on a snowboard, going for help, but the wolves are chasing right behind him.
And then Parker is there
Alone.
wondering, did it work? Is he coming back? Did he get help?
Then
Eventually.
night falls.
Yeah.
She wakes up the next morning, and no one has come for her. Joe must not have made it.
Nuh-uh.
With her frostbitten hand, she can't climb the cable, so she gets ready to jump. Suddenly the cable breaks, and the whole chair falls about 20 feet. My, that was convenient.
It was convenient timing.
This gets her closer to the ground, so when she does jump off, she survives. Unfortunately, the chair falls on top of her leg, causing another injury. She eventually walks and crawls down the mountain, which I also thought was far too easy, because there's still wolves.
Mm-hmm.
She finds what's left of Joe, half-eaten. The wolves are there too, but they're too busy eating him to care about Parker.
They're full now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not worth going after another human.
She comes to a road and passes out. A car drives by, spots her laying there. A man puts her in the car and calls the hospital. The end.
Uh-huh.
Her little dog gets to eat after all when she gets home.
Yay.
And again, we have a weird confluence of coincidence which leads to disaster. Again, people leave their cell phones behind for no real reason.
Yeah, they left their phones in the locker.
All three of them.
Yeah.
Nobody takes selfies.
You're not allowed to.
Nobody checks in for Facebook or Instagram or any of those things.
You're allowed to take a phone while skiing.
I can understand the ocean divers not taking their phones along.
Well,
They're no good for anything anyway. But up here, yeah, it might have worked.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway, once the problem starts, everybody behaves more or less believably. Well, there's not much that happened before the group gets on the ski lift. So in order to make a full-length movie out of 3 people on a high chair, there's a lot of talking about personal stories.
But they did it pretty well.
It gets a little old after a while. It makes it feel like they aren't doing enough to be rescued. I mean, I don't know what else they could have done, but it drags for a bit. Probably not as much for us as it does the 3 spending 2 days in a chair. We don't see much of the wolf attack, although it was filmed. There's lots of gore and lots of blood and lots of tearing meat, and they cut it all out for the release version.
Enough to get you to get the idea, though. Yeah.
Being injured and all, Parker still seemed to make it down the mountain fairly easily, so those wolves must have caught Joe pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ow!
Oh.
Then we watched a short film. What's this one called?
Nice to Finally Meet You from 2023. It's a brand new one.
Written and directed by Jason Burke. Stars Andy Matichak. She was in the most recent 3 Halloween films.
Uh-huh.
Evan Williams, Kilda Shower, Matt Van Orden, and Ned Van Zandt. 5 minutes and 22 seconds. Watch it on YouTube. There's a link in the show notes. Well, Adam, and this description comes straight from the YouTube listing. Adam happily makes his way up a long winding driveway leading to a stunning Central Jersey lake house. He's about to meet his girlfriend Lori's family for the first time and has made every effort to ensure that his first impression will be a lasting one.
It is.
Oh, it is.
Yes.
As the weekend unfolds and Adam's attempts to fit in fall increasingly short, the thinner the veil becomes between his fantasy and the Thompsons family's terrifying reality.
And you said Adam seems too old to be in this position. I didn't think so.
I mean, he's acting like a high school kid going to see his date's parents for the first time. And he's like in his mid-20s or late 20s even here, I think.
Oh, I thought he sold it. He's just socially awkward, and it's a big deal. He likes her, and, the family is harsh. The dad and the brother are judging him, and no, I think it's believable.
Okay, well,
Yeah, I didn't think he was too old for it.
anyway, him being a little too old might be the least weird part of the story.
Anyway, yeah, whether you agree or not on old or not,
That's a minor point.
That's a minor point.
There are many details missing to this story, but we can kind of fill in the blanks, which is the whole point. Most of it goes on in your head.
Mm-hmm.
How did things get to this point? Well, that could be a full-length movie in itself. Feels like we've seen that movie a couple of times, so this just sort of gets to the point right away.
And it's a good one.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's really good. You should check it out.
Another one that I thought looked pretty good from the trailer, I had not seen this one either, is Backcountry from 2014.
Camping. Who doesn't love camping and hiking in the woods?
You don't.
Well, that's true. Even less after watching movies like this.
Written and directed by Adam McDonald, stars Jeff Roop, Missy Peregrym, Nicholas Campbell, and Eric Balfour. You ever see Eric Balfour play a good guy?
He's a good guy in this.
Okay, this is the one.
Yeah.
1 hour, 32 minutes.
He was a good guy in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie.
He was in that?
He was one of them. I don't remember if it was a reboot or sequel or which one, but yeah,
he's all right sometimes.
He often plays a good guy.
He's not always the bad guy.
Yeah.
Well, spoiler free, this one is open water, only in the woods.
Basically.
The other one was open water on a ski lift. Hiking is fun and the woods are peaceful until you get lost. And then there's a persistent bear who decides you might be food. This one's a little predictable, but it's well made and manages to be thoroughly horrifying.
Yeah, that attack scene, that initial attack, that was something.
What happens?
Well, we open in the woods as flies swarm around something. But we cut to Alex and Jen loading their car for a trip. And in the car they play Rate Your Boyfriend from a woman's magazine. He sings some horrible music that actually cheers her up, and credits roll. So they seem happy, they get along. Nice couple. They arrive at the park and check in with the ranger, who warns them this is the end of the season. The crowds are going to be pretty sparse. And
what? The ski lift's about to close?
Yeah,
the divers are about to come up?
There's not going to be anybody around to help you. What? Yeah. Blackwood Trail, the trail that Alex wanted to take, is closed due to vandals. And the ranger warns they get caught, there's going to be a $1,000 fine. And Alex doesn't want a map.
And I'm not clear on this one. Did they take that trail? He never really said that. We never saw a sign.
There were no signs. I'm assuming that...
Maybe he didn't go on the trails why they got lost.
Oh, we went off trail.
Eventually, yes.
He knew where the lake was, but he didn't really. Yeah. So anyway, he doesn't want a map because he knows the area really well. So what could go wrong? Well, the two of them get into a canoe and head out to where they're going. And when they do get to the trail, I mean, it is kind of a trail initially.
Oh, it's a real trail to begin with, yes.
Yeah, but we don't know if it's the closed one or not. You know, there are no signs, like you said. Jen shows Alex that she has bear spray. Well, he also injured his ankle getting out of the boat.
And he laughs at her about the bear spray, like, oh, what are you afraid of? There's no bears here.
There's no bears, yeah.
Spoiler, there were bears.
A bear, yeah. She's brought all kinds of stuff just in case. He laughs, and he says, we'll be lucky to see anything bigger than a chipmunk, right? They eventually find a spot, put their tent up. They're wearing jackets, and they have a warm campfire, but he wants to go skinny dipping, which looks really cold and uninviting.
I don't know if it was the real clouds or not, but this whole thing is shot with like a gray filter at this point. It really looks like, Michigan in the winter.
Yeah.
There's
no
cold.
Snow on the ground, but it looks cold, yeah. Well, they go through with it. They go skinny dipping. And we get the impression from her expressions that Jen doesn't really want to be there. She isn't into it nearly as much as he is. This is kind of her first camping trip, and yeah. Well, they run into some guy named Brad on the trail. He's a little weird, but they invite him to stay and eat with them. And Brad's a wilderness tour guide. Paul knows some places that are off the tourist trail that he offers to show them. Well, Alex doesn't like or trust him.
I know, the name Paul just came in there somewhere.
Paul.
That's not Paul. This is Brad.
Why did I say Paul? Because the notes say Paul. And it's Eric Balfour. Where did Paul come from?
Every character you don't know their name, just put in Paul. You got a 50-50 chance.
Okay. Notes glitch, yes. Well, anyway, Brad, Eric Balfour, says he knows some places that are off the tourist trail and he offers to show them, but Alex doesn't like or trust Brad. Jen thinks he's interesting.
He's seen Deliverance once too often.
Yeah, yeah. And Brad and Alex get a little confrontational, but it's no big deal. Well, Brad does leave. Alex and Jen argue a little bit about the guy after he goes. And the next morning, Alex tells Jen all about the trail and how much time he spent there growing up. He goes off trail for a bit, and Alex's foot starts bothering him again. That night, Alex takes his sock off. His foot isn't doing so well, and a toenail comes off with it. That's not a good sign, yeah. But fortunately, Jen packed a bunch of first aid stuff. And after they go to bed, Jen hears something outside. She wakes up Alex and says, "Listen." But it's nothing, he insists. It was not nothing. They find many broken branches in the morning. Jen wants to go home, but he wants to push through to the destination. They continue on the trail, but Jen smells something strange, and she checks it out and finds a dead deer torn apart and half-eaten.
And that was probably the thing when we saw the flies going on in the pre-credit sequence.
Yeah, probably. Well, they get to the lake, except there is no lake. It's not there. And he reminds Jen that, oh yeah, we don't have a map. Jen looks for her phone, but Alex left it in the car because he didn't want her to use it. They argue. She calls him a loser who messes up everything. Well, and then Alex reveals that the plan was to propose to her at the lake that they can't find.
That went well.
Yeah, worst proposal ever. They decide to make camp, try to make their way back to the trail in the morning, retrace their steps, but they're just kind of lost. He doesn't know where they are. There's a thunderstorm that night. As they sleep, we hear a bear rummaging around, and their food is gone in the morning, but Alex blames a raccoon. Well, they're retracing their steps. They find a bear bed as they walk, decide they'd better press on. They're definitely in bear territory. That night, the two make up after their argument, but they hear footsteps in the woods and hide in their tent. And, hiding in tents isn't bear-proof, as they find
even
in the morning. One morning rolls around and Alex proclaims, "We're going to be okay," except the bear is right outside the tent. Jen pulls out her bear spray, and then the bear comes inside the tent, chomps onto Alex in the leg, claws Jen's arm before Jen gives a chance to drive it away with the spray. Gives it a good blast in the face. Well, Alex screams in pain as Jen wraps his leg, but almost immediately the bear comes back in again and drags Alex into the woods, and she used up the bear spray. Jen takes off running once she is sure that Alex is very, very dead.
Oh, it's no doubt about that one.
Oh, yeah, they make it that clear. That's pretty graphic. And she doesn't get very far before she falls and knocks herself out.
This is a horror movie, right?
Yeah.
She runs and falls.
Yeah. Well, she climbs a tree and passes out for a while. When she wakes up, she finds a stream, gets a drink finally, and she left everything back at the ruined tent. She's just got the clothes she's got on her, basically. She spots the bear again. This time it chases her. She climbs down a waterfall and falls down, breaking or spraining her leg badly. But she splints it and finds a stick to use as a crutch, and then she passes out again. When she wakes up, she spots a deer right in front of her. She limps on and comes to the river where they parked their canoe. She painfully climbs in and pushes off and eventually rows back to the ranger station where help is waiting. And actually, Brad is there with a group. So, she's rescued.
Yay.
Yay.
You think she'll go camping again next week?
And again, this is supposed to be loosely based on true events.
I'm sure the campers have been attacked by bears in the past. Mm-hmm. It doesn't seem unlikely. But here we've got Alex, who is clearly an idiot. He doesn't know where he's going, and then refuses a free map. Blair Witch, anyone?
Only worse.
The acting is good from a very small cast. There's really only 3 characters and a brief appearance by the ranger. The gore effects are pretty good, but we don't really get to see a lot of the actual bear.
Just enough.
The cinematography started out fairly straightforward, but as things progressed, the shots grew shorter and blurrier to make things feel more raw and confused. It's completely predictable, but it looks good and is well acted. And if you want to see a film about a bear eating people, no cocaine involved, this is for you.
And I don't know if I didn't look up the trivia, the making of or anything, but it sure looks like a real practical effect. Doesn't
bear?
look like it doesn't look like CGI.
It could be.
Yeah,
There are trained bears.
Yeah, yeah. I'm thinking of Prey, that recent Predator prequel
With the
where-
CGI bear,
Oh
yes.
gosh, that bear! It was a good
The worst
movie.
part of that movie.
That was the worst movie. That bear looked so fake, so
Well, the
CGI.
movie was good, but the bear was horrible.
Yeah, yeah. This one looks good. Looks really realistic.
All right, takes us to our next movie. What happens if you get really high up? You might.
Fall.
2022's Fall, directed by Scott Mann, written by Jonathan Frank and Scott Mann, stars Grace Carolyn Curry, Virginia Gardner, and Mason Gooding. And 1 hour and 47 minutes, trailer in the show notes. Spoiler free, what happens?
Sometimes bad things happen to good people. And sometimes bad things happen to good people because they make stupid choices. Yeah. And granted, things happen here to make things worse, but the two main characters just put themselves in the situation. And overall, it's pretty good. And this one will make your palms sweat. That's something that I noticed, and I mentioned to Brian
So
as we were
me too,
watching it.
yes.
My palms were literally sweating watching. Yeah.
I have not been scared by a horror movie in decades, and they don't even normally make me that uncomfortable, but
This one
This one did a little bit.
This one made me uncomfortable.
and this is clearly my favorite of the week. What about you?
Okay, yes, I think I would. I hadn't even thought of these in a rating kind of way, but yeah, I'd say this was my favorite of the week. Yeah, second would be Frozen. Yeah, I think this would be the best.
Okay.
My favorite,
And all of these are people putting themselves in their own positions.
pretty much. Yeah,
I mean, the
yeah.
Frozen one, they did something dumb. They shouldn't have bribed the guy that late at night, but it wasn't really their fault. But everybody else kind of chose this in a roundabout way.
Yeah,
Well, Becky and Dan Connor climb a mountain, vertically. Big mountain, with not enough safety equipment. Friend Shiloh Hunter is there too. And something happens, Dan falls, and we see that there is a safety line, but since it's about to pull out of the wall, it's not a very good one. And then he does fall to his death as credits roll. Well, that was a short part for him.
it was. Hey, there was a fall, just like in the
movie's
title.
over.
Yeah.
Almost a full year later, Becky's father, James, calls, and she lets it go to the machine. He eventually tracks her down at a club to tell her that she needs to get over Dan. She's getting carried away with the self-pity, and he's not wrong, and she knows he's not wrong, but she also doesn't want to listen.
Yeah, it's been a year, and she's still utterly devastated by it.
She goes home and does pills and booze. Then Hunter comes over. She has a plan and needs a partner. She wants to climb the B-67 TV tower. Becky mopes and whines, but the next morning she changes her mind and decides to do it. Hunter does all kinds of risky stuff for her YouTube channel, and she uses the proceeds to fund her traveling. See, we don't do YouTube videos anymore because they got too risky. We would sit here and we would read these reviews, and you never know what might
They're
happen.
just too dangerous.
The microphones might explode or something.
You never know.
YouTube is harsh. Actually, our podcasts are. This message is brought to you by YouTube.
By horror guys.
Our Horror Guys podcast is available on YouTube. I mean, it's just a talking. It's not even a talking head video. It's just
audio.
our audio thing with the slide over the top. So,
Yeah.
if you prefer,
It's another way to listen to the podcast.
if you want to listen to it on YouTube, it's there. And of course, Spotify and Apple and all the podcasting places.
Yeah.
Which has absolutely nothing to do with this movie. So now, back to our review. They stop at a diner near the tower, and Hunter shows us an improv way to recharge a phone by plugging it into a light bulb socket. And this just seems so stupid, we knew it was going to have to come back later.
So random and so
You take the
deliberate.
electrical outlet from your phone that you plug in the wall and stick it inside the socket of the light bulb, just right, so it recharges the phone.
Which makes sense. The one prong touches the contact at the bottom, and one prong touches the side.
It would work,
Yeah.
but you'd have to hold it there the whole time. How long does it take to charge a phone?
2 seconds, according to this movie. Okay, not 2 seconds, but it didn't take any time at all.
No, they drive as close as they can to the tower. It's way out in the desert, and they have to walk nearly a mile from the car to get there, past a bunch of vultures eating a nearly dead animal.
Mm-hmm.
They arrive at the foot of the huge tower. We're told that it's over 2,000 feet tall. Becky starts to cry. I can't do it. Hunter gives her a pep talk about kicking fear in the ass. Becky gives in and starts climbing. There's a ladder, so how hard could it be?
That was my thought initially. Even I'd do that.
This is not mountain climbing. It is a ladder.
Yeah, it's a ladder. How hard is this? Yeah.
Well, the camera then pans to a support cable looking all wobbly. We see loose bolts and worn ladder rungs all over the place. This old tower is not very well maintained.
Yeah, it's starting to fall apart.
Of course, it's got that red blinky light at the top so airplanes avoid it. Somebody has to get up there eventually.
Somebody would have to get up there and do that, yeah.
2,000 feet later, they arrive at the top of the main tower where there's a platform they can stand on. There's another 200 meters of vertical pole to climb, but it's got a rickety old ladder too, so they don't stop. Hunter climbs up to the big dish antenna, and Becky is terrified, but forces herself to do it at Hunter's prompting. Becky watches as a bolt falls off and falls right past her face.
Foreshadowing.
Hunter makes it to the top, where there's a teeny tiny little platform about 4 feet wide. Becky scrabbles up behind her, and we see another bolt fall off. They launch a drone and take some crazy footage of Hunter hanging by one arm from the tower. And how stupid do you have to be?
For the thrills, for the views.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Hunter wants Becky to hang by one hand, too, and Becky doesn't have enough sense to argue. She's kind of all in at this point.
So they get good footage.
Becky finally calms down and gets into it. She brought Dan's ashes along with them to dump from the top of the tower. Oddly enough, when she does this, Hunter cries too. And at this point, I'm like, oh.
Yeah, we both went, oh.
They decide it's time to climb back down. Becky goes first, and the entire ladder collapses under her. Not just one rung, the whole freaking ladder.
From this little extra tower, extra bit, yeah.
There is much screaming and dangling as the ladder impacts the ground nearly a half-mile below them. Hunter manages to pull Becky back up, but it doesn't look like it was an easy thing to do.
And the ladder down to the next...
The top 200 feet is gone.
Yeah, it's gone. And they don't have that much rope with them.
Neither of them have cell phone signals. We're too high for signals, Becky says. Pretty sure that's not how that works, but they are way out in the desert. All their water and supplies are down at the platform below. Hunter is sure that someone must have heard all that metal hit the ground. Not only that, but Becky has a big gash in her leg from the falling debris or something. As they wait for help, both of them talk to the camera for the YouTube channel. This is not streaming, or their problems would be over.
They're just recording.
They get the bright idea to send a message to Hunter's many Insta followers. They'll hit post and then dangle the phone from a rope in hopes of getting some coverage down below them. It doesn't work. Well, what if they just drop the phone, reinforced inside something like the egg drop challenge?
Because they know they had signal down at the base of the tower.
Yeah.
They were messing around online.
They use Hunter's shoe and bra to pad the fall. They see a man and his dog walking down at the base of the tower. They scream, but he can't hear them that far below.
The dog notices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They throw shoes down to get his attention, but only the dog sees it. The man finds the shoe eventually, but then he doesn't look up. Night falls. Becky watches old videos on Hunter's phone. There are 2 men in an RV down below, and the 2 girls shoot off their one and only flare. The 2 men finally do see them on top of the tower, but instead of calling help, they steal Hunter's car.
These are not good guys. Yeah.
Well, the sun comes up, and Becky figures out that Hunter had been having an affair with Dan, Becky's husband.
And the way they were, it's an RV out in the middle of nowhere.
Probably cooking meth.
Could have been likely cooking meth, doing illegal stuff. Yeah.
Turned out it was Walter White all along.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, she finds out that Hunter had been having an affair. Very awkward. Hunter tells the whole story, but it's nowhere near as bad as it could have been. Becky then takes off her wedding ring. Hunter thinks maybe the rope is long enough to reach the satellite dish far below them. She might be able to climb down there and reach their backpack. She climbs down, but the rope's not long enough. She swings, lets go of the rope, and lands on the big dish. She gets a drink of water. The rope is quite a ways out of reach for her. Hunter then uses her selfie stick to gain a few feet and hooks the backpack onto the dangling rope. She jumps off the dish and grabs the backpack and rope. Now Becky has to pull Hunter all the way back up. She gets to the top and then slides all the way back down, slicing up her hands, but she's okay otherwise.
But she can't climb. So
Now it's completely up to Becky to pull her up. But she does. Now, with the backpack in hand, they write a note and put it in their drone. They can see the diner from where they are. Can the drone make it that far? No. The battery starts to fail, and they barely manage to retrieve the drone. They don't have any power to recharge it.
there's no plugins there. But wait.
It gets dark again, and in the middle of the night, Becky wakes up, being alone except for attacking vultures. No, it's just a dream. Hunter looks up at the bright blinking red airplane warning light above them and decides she can use her little socket trick to recharge the drone.
That's where it comes in handy.
I knew that was coming back. She can't do the climb because her hands are messed up, so Becky has to do it. Becky then has to climb another 100 feet or so onto a small pole. Hunter says, "It's just like pole dancing." Well, okay, that makes it easier.
Yeah.
Becky unscrews the bulb and has to hotwire it somehow to charge the plug. She uses her wedding ring to make the contact,
Yeah,
and it works.
Because it's not a standard size little socket. It's a great big bulb. But
Well-
she makes it work.
Yep, but it's going to take hours to charge a phone, right?
No.
Well, through the power of imaginary filmmaking,
At the speed of plot.
she holds onto that pole with her legs and fingers for however long that takes, while avoiding the swooping vultures pecking at her injured leg.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of time, but not that much.
I know my phone takes an hour or two, even if it's plugged in properly.
And drones, this is a big drone. It's a big professional level drone. It's not one of them little toys.
Plus, they've been up there for 3 days, and their phones are still charged up to watch videos on it.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you watch a YouTube video if you don't have any signal?
I'm sure they were in memory. They were stuff on the phone.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, she climbs back down to where Hunter is. They wait for the diner to open and try the drone again, and it flies all the way to the road, and then it gets hit by a truck about 100 feet short of the diner.
Blam.
Crunch.
Yeah.
Suddenly, Becky has a burst of reality. Wait, what? Hunter fell to her death when she was going for that backpack yesterday. She's been hallucinating her for most of the day. Oh.
Yeah, and it was clever how they did that too, because they're like, oh well, maybe we can send the last phone down in your last shoe, and Hunter says, well, yeah, but the shoe's not up here.
It's on her dead foot down below.
Yeah.
Well, there's another thunderstorm that night, and it gets pretty hairy. Becky records a personal video for her father, how he was right about everything. The next morning, the vultures come for Becky, and she grabs one of them. She kills it and eats it raw.
You get hungry enough.
Fully fed and recharged, she ties her rope and starts climbing down to where Hunter's body lies. She takes off Hunter's shoe when she gets down there and puts her phone in it like before. She puts it inside the hole in Hunter's belly and rolls her off. Not just the shoe this time. She puts it inside Hunter.
Because apparently the first one didn't survive just a shoe.
Then the satellite dish she's sitting on starts to buckle. Well, we then cut to Becky's father, who arrives later with helicopters, ambulances, and a zillion cops. Apparently the message went through.
Yay!
And Becky is there too. She survived. So who's going to talk Becky into climbing something crazy next year?
Not Hunter.
No. Well, it turns out that B-67 TV tower is a real thing, and it's the fourth tallest structure in the USA. And I've seen pictures taken from the top of this tower recently.
It's huge.
The establishing shots of the tower are real, and the part where the actors are shown on the tower is really a 100-foot tall replica. There was minimal CGI and no green screen used in this film.
Yeah, they built a fake little tower on top of a high peak to totally fake out.
Yeah.
So the shots looked like they were way above the ground because they were way above ground level. But, yeah.
Well,
cool how they did it. It looked really realistic.
Yeah, it looked really good.
Very realistic.
No
Very well
CGI
done.
made this much more realistic than some other things.
Yeah.
Well, this is a great advertisement for extreme sports of all kinds. Fear exists for a reason.
Sometimes it bites them.
They made a big deal about recharging the drone, but their phones managed to keep it charged for 3 days. Remember when they were in the diner and the phone was dead at that point?
Uh-huh.
This was just a few hours later.
Yeah.
Okay, well, anyway, Hunter's face was laying there on the satellite dish, untouched after 24 hours with vultures. I think vultures go for the eyes first. You know, the juicy bits.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, okay. The bears, sharks, and freezing temperatures of this week's films didn't get me in the least, but Kevin and I both had sweaty palms throughout this one. It was just also unnecessary and stupid in the first place.
For the thrill.
For the YouTube hits.
and the thrill.
These two kind of had it coming to them.
Hunter's really an adrenaline junkie.
Yeah. This is probably the stupidest situation of all the films this week, but it's also the best made film and the most tense.
Mm-hmm.
I like that one a lot.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's it for this week. Remember, over at horrorbulletin.com, you can read all our reviews, plus get the bonus ones in your mailbox once a week. This week had everything we just talked to you about, as well as Devil's Pass, a.k.a. the Dyatlov Pass incident from 2013, and also Deliverance, the breakout Burt Reynolds' first role in 1972.
See, and I actually liked the two bonus films more than the four that we talked about.
I like Deliverance. I had not seen Deliverance in a long time. It was a lot better than I remembered it.
This was the
I thought
second
Dyatlov
time.
Pass was kind of stupid.
Oh, yeah, I like that. Yeah, I like that one. I dug it more than you. Deliverance, I actually saw when it came out, and then this was the second time I've seen it. So it's been a while.
You saw that when you were 5 or 6?
Yeah.
Your parents are weird people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure I saw Deliverance when it came to TV the first
was-
time on network TV, and it would have been all cut to pieces.
I was older than that. What year was Deliverance?
72?
72, yeah. Okay, it was about 7. Yeah.
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 Okay. Perfect age for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anyway, stop over at horrorguys.com. Read these things daily as they're posted, or horrorbulletin.com and get them once a week in your mailbox. Check out horrorguys.com/books to pick up all our books. And until then, well, next week we're going to have 4 more movies.
We sure will.
See, last week we did the disasters. This week we did little stupid natural things. Next week's just going to be a random collection of this and that. One of our grab bag weeks.
Horror movies.
Which is usually the best kind. You don't know what you're going to get.
It's a surprise.
And until next week, then, I'm Brian.
And I'm Kevin.
We'll see you
Next week.
See ya.
See ya.